Hey guys, RavenofAsh here. 918 Sonic Supra sent me a ton of his invasion clips. I found them interesting for this series, so today I will only review his stuff. I could do another episode with the rest of his footage, but I need to review other people's clips first. So this is a soul level 20 twink build. He's using Ring of Favor plus 3, Prisoners, Knight and Hunter rings. His build is okay in my view, so I will not do a build analysis for this one. Low level builds are very starved for stats, and you will have to focus on something. You can focus on damage, like this build, or an alternative is to focus on heavy armor for survivability, then you would spec for vitality and vigor and infuse weapons with raw gems. I will just say this, if you are not using more weapons, use heavier armor up to, for example, 60 to 65% weight ratio, in order for you to be able to change up weapons to heavier ones on the fly. It's inefficient to have 17% weight capacity not being used. Also, split damage weapons are very good at low level invasions. They can do insane damage. As 918 has the stats for it, try using a Drakeblood Greatsword instead of the Bastard Sword in a Dragon Slayer axe. Try them out and see if you like them. So the invasion starts and 918 finds a Sunbro who's hiding behind his shield. It's really important for you to kill this guy now because the host isn't here yet. So to kill this guy you need to guard break him. There are several ways to guard break an enemy. You can go for kicks. This guy's shield is probably unupgraded. PvE players often forget to upgrade their shields. You should swap for a great sword with stance like the Claymore. Which is sometimes better than the straight sword because everybody expects you to play with the great sword two-handed, and if you play with the straight sword two-handed everybody thinks that you're gonna go for guard breaks. Other thing that also works is to use a weapon art shield, and you don't see these a lot in invasions, but they are really useful. I've been playing around with them and no one expects you to guard break them when one-handing a straight sword, so it really catches players by surprise. I also recommend the Eastern Iron Shield, which stat-wise is similar to the Wellen. Also you can use the Night Slayer ring with a weapon that does good stamina damage like a greatsword or a hammer. Or finally you can also go for short range running attacks. Running attacks do much more stamina damage than regular R1s. So there's a lot of ways to get around shields. So now the host joins the fight, and 918 is trying to get some room in order to change up his weapon. And now he goes for the Erythril Straight Sword. Now the Erythril Straight Sword, it's not a bad straight sword. However, it cannot be buffed, and at this low soul levels it's really important to have buffable weapons because the resins do a lot of damage at low soul level. It's really hard to guard break opponents when another opponent is wailing on you, so I would just back off and try to outspace my opponents instead of trying to get the shield break on the Sunbro. Also, the greatsword would still be a better option because at your poise thresholds, they would not be able to interrupt the hyper armor from your greatsword. So you would be able to swing indefinitely through their weapons. So, like I said, I think the greatsword two-handed would be a better option in this scenario. And after a while, a blue joins the fight. This is why time runs against an invader. The longer the invasion goes, the bigger the probability that other phantoms friendly to the host will be summoned. And notice that if you had managed to kill the Sunbro, this would have been a completely different invasion. You could have some alone time with the host, and in the beginning you had a greatsword, and probably the blue would have gotten here too late. Now it's a 3v1 and the invasion just became much harder. Also, I would not fight in this area here because you don't have a lot of room to make mistakes. If you get stuck between your opponents, they will be able to stun lock you. Especially at higher soul levels, one situation like that one right there in the tunnel would have meant certain death. So I usually prefer to play on more open areas if I can. Now I'm criticizing a lot of things, but at this point this invasion is not really an easy one. You only have two Estes, And watch out about drinking after you fall from a certain place, because you're always going to be plunged attacked. However, at this time, unless you parry really well and you have, for example, a dagger and a hornet ring on, this invasion became really hard, as you don't have any mobs to support you. So at this point, you don't have any more Estus flasks, so this invasion is practically unwinnable right now. So this is 918's sorcery build, although he's only using melee weapons. He's invading at the Sticky Bandit's bonfire. Now the thing is, soul level 62 plus 7 build, it's really low for this area. You can easily go to level 70 plus 7 in this area. I can get invasions in this same bonfire at 90 plus 10. Now the most glaring issue for me with this build is that, well, aside from the overlapping of the mace with the straight sword, which I think it's not a really good combo for invading. I would prefer a heavier weapon than a lighter weapon with different rolls. But the biggest issue for me here is this build has very little endurance. And this stems from the fact that the starting class that 918 chose for this character is an assassin. And an assassin has a non-optimal stat spread, in my view, of course, for PvP. So for example, if you look at the knight and having exactly the same stats as the assassin, you can get exactly the same stats at unlisted level 55 instead of 62. So he's invading in an area where he can go to up to 70, and he's also losing 7 stat points if he had chosen a knight class, and that makes a big difference. So because the game doesn't allow us to change the class, and if you're unwilling to respec for a dex build, which would fit the assassin better, I would probably drop 5 points from intelligence and put them on endurance. For comparison's sake, soul level 1 knight with prisoner's chain has 16 endurance, and you only have 20. This is very low for a mid-level build. Other thing that I referenced in the previous episode of this series is that it's useful in invasions to do poised tearing. What I mean by this is use the hammer if you want to hand it to counter non-hyper armor weapons, and use an ultra great sword or a great hammer to counter heavier weapons. So it's not one size fits all. The idea is to have weapons that can hard counter other weapons poise-wise. So in this invasion, 918 is playing against a guy with a claymore and a medium shield. And these fights are not easy because your opponent is playing very passive, and he's turtling behind his shield. So all that I've said in the previous invasion about guard breaking shield stand. Now, apart from that, one really good idea is to parry his great sword swing. And this is exactly what 918 tries to do here. He goes for the setup parry and he whiffs. Probably at this time I would have changed to a Llewellyn, because the Llewellyn has more active parry frames than the medium shield. And now 918 goes for several good roll catches, but now it was time to put pressure on the opponent. At least to punish his healing, if not to prevent him from healing. So now again he goes for good roll catches, and his opponent is on the ropes, and now would be the perfect time to pressure, to run up to him and to attack him. And again, he cannot even punish his healing, and this is something a lot of players struggle with. Now this was an invasion I had a while ago, and this guy knew how to play. This guy did some mix-ups with the timings, this guy used the weapon art, so this was probably an experienced player just going through the game, and this guy knows some PvP. So, but the problem was with this guy, he didn't punish my healing. For example, now he didn't punish it, and And hosts, of course, have the big advantage in invasions because they have more Estus, they have more HP. So it's really important for you to pick the right timings to attack them. And this guy is rolling everything on reaction. I'm not being able to catch him. And I want to go for the Green Blossom for some stamina regeneration. But now I see my opportunity. I go for 2 R1s and an R2, and now I'm on top of him. I change up for the straight sword, and he cannot do anything without me being on top of him. And I managed to get the kill by putting pressure on him. Now 918 changed for a Zwei and a Llewellyn, but now he has no backup weapon for chase downs. The problem here is got to create pressure before you hit him and when you get him low with the Zwei. Also, at only 20 stamina, it's really hard to use an ultra, even for low-cost stamina ultras like the Zwei. However, if you really want to use the Zwei, mix things up and go for running attacks with the Night Slayer ring. Running attacks do much more stamina damage, and probably you would get a shield break with only one running R1. 918 changed for the Great Club, and the White gets summoned, and the White manages to kill himself. And now he goes for an R2, he shield breaks his opponent immediately, he goes for another Hunter Charm, perfect play, and he finishes up with another charged R2. This was a perfect play, and you can see here how the different stamina damage that ultras, especially Great Hammers, can do to shields. So this is another bonfire duel at the same bonfire, and in this case you have a good health lead against this guy. This would be the perfect opportunity to pressure him. Now invaders sometimes have to risk these kinds of plays. Of course it would be less risky to back up and heal, but the host has more HP and he has much more healing than you. So sometimes it's necessary to take some risks and to go on the offensive. Another important thing to say is that most players buckle under pressure when they are low. If you are talking about a good player, probably that will not be the case, but most hosts are not good PvP players, so take advantage of that and pressure them when they are low. They are more preoccupied in healing than to turn and burn or to hit you. Other thing that is important to be mindful of is your opponent's build. Now your opponent here, he's doing magic damage and he has the ridiculous looking Crown of Dusk. This means that he can probably punish your healing at a distance. And you must be mindful of this because healing against mages needs a different spacing. So you probably, if you want to heal, go out of his line of sight and then heal. Or expect for him to throw a couple of soul spears and then heal. Don't panic heal against a mage. And now 918 goes for a really good play. He is one-handing his straight sword, and by this time the host knows that he wants to guard break him. He changes for two-handed and he goes for the guard break and the riposte. It would be useful to have a Zwei, for example, or a heavier weapon in order to change up the weapon for the riposte. This would have heightened the punishment. And then he goes for the Undead Hunter Charm at the perfect timing. This was really perfectly done. Other thing that I would recommend 918 is to have stamina boosting items in his build. You could go, for example, for the Grass Crest Shield instead of the Sunset Shield, and you should always fight under the influence of a Green Blossom. That would really help your stamina recovery, and that would heighten your pressure options. Other thing to be mindful of is that because you're using an elemental build, you are always shipping through his shields. So if you stay on top of him and you keep hitting his shields, even if you don't guard break him, you're always doing chip damage, and that can make a difference in an invasion. At this point you don't have any Estus flasks, and basically the host out-heals you in this fight. Now in this invasion, 918 is going at it with the spiked mace. And again, it's the only weapon that he has on the build at this time. So of course he can poise to the straight sword, but it becomes really hard to damage his opponent if he's playing passive, and his opponent is very passive. So is that to say that ultra weapons are bad at invasions? No, far from it, but they work usually only against aggressive players that really want to engage you and are willing to trade with you. They are also very useful against multiple players because they think they can overrun you, and in this kind of scenario it's not really a good idea to engage with an ultra. Now 918 goes for one of the strengths of the spiked mace, which is its combo. However, the spiked mace R1 into weapon art into R2 does not combo. He knows this. It's more for if people don't know. The true combo is R1 into weapon art into R1. And sometimes it's useful, especially if the player is rolling around you, to go for the weapon art and then R1. Here he goes for the true combo, but I think that the Grave Warden stopped the stun lock because it hit the other player. Now, a good idea in these situations, especially when the mobs can also hurt you like the Grave Warden can, is to let the mobs do the work. And a lot of times you can support them by using Undead Hunter Charms, by throwing fire bombs while they are distracted with the mobs. This will also have the big advantage of not exposing you to damage. Now the host just runs, and this becomes another 1v1 without the mobs. 918 manages to get him low, but it's really hard to punish healing with an ultra. So a change up of weapons was really the key, I think, for winning this invasion. And after a while his opponent goes for a straight sword. And now 918 goes for the Spiked Mace R2. Now the Spiked Mace R2, like most of Great Hammer's R2s, are really bad. They have this sort of vertical swing that leaves you wide open for retaliation. That doesn't mean they are useless. Sometimes if, for example, an opponent is charging their own R2, you can outspace them, but as a rule of thumb, R2s on Great Hammers really suck. And now he's under pressure from a straight sword, and just because of that small mistake, the invasion ends here. Now 918 is invading in the Profane Capital, and as he's aware, the Silvercat Ring here is really useful. Sometimes it's also useful to use the Ring of the Evil Eye to know if the opponents are active or not, and if they're killing mobs, you'll get like a small sound. So here he's doing well by maintaining this chokehold. But note that the white is using Vort. And Vort's Great Hammer, it's a really dangerous weapon, especially in a multiple opponent scenario. It's really easy to Frostbite to proc. It procs in about 3 hits, and it doesn't even need to hit you, just a final hit. And when you're frostbitten, the damage you'll take will increase by 7% for 28 seconds, which means that all of the weapons that are hitting you get an indirect buff of 7%. So if you're frostbitten, invasions will end really fast. Also, your stamina regeneration will suffer. So while it's a good idea to hold this chokehold, you could now take the opportunity to go up the structure and ready for a plunging attack, because now they know where you are. And also, in this case, being passive can be a good idea, because you're wasting 3 people's time. And probably one of them will just go out of the structure because he's becoming impatient, and then you can make your damage. But here you get stun locked and you get hit by everything at the same time. So against multiple opponents, really small mistakes end invasions very quickly. So in this text invasion, his opponent is using a dagger and a cestus. It means he will probably be going for criticals and probably will be a parry king. Counter this by going for backstabs. Also, he's using the troll hood, meaning that he's probably a fighter PL smartass wannabe. He's not good at parrying. He's trying to parry a straight sword on reaction, which really is very hard on any latency. So a cautious playstyle is advised. And 918 is doing exactly that, and the fight is going well. He is not just drawing R1s, and he seems to be in control of the fight. And now he goes for the jumping attack, which is a good play against these kind of players. Now the Sunbro joins the fight, and 918 does very well to get out of this situation. And against two players, especially a mage, it's important to be passive and let them waste their focus points. And now the Gargoyle joins the fight, and 918 chooses to pressure the Sunbro, and this is very well played. He's doing good pressure, he's doing good damage, and the Sunbro is being roll caught left and right. But now the host joins the fight, and he does well to back off. Now, if possible, try not to heal. We've discussed this before. Try not to heal on the mage line of sight. This was a cheeky parry. This could have worked. It was a good play. But now the idea should be to continue through the level, and in here he becomes stun locked, and this was unnecessary. He should have gone straight to the level. And now 918 goes for the mace, and the mace is an excellent weapon, but try to have both opponents in front of you. By letting them split up, one in front of you and you behind, another behind you, you risk getting backstabbed like it happened here. So now 918 goes through the level and he makes this jump, and its opponents are not able to pressure him, so this was well played. So now 918 goes all around the level, and in here I think he should have been less aggressive. He should have swapped for the Obscuring Ring, for example, and a Great Bow, and surprised the opposing party. In here, well, it's the same thing. Try to have both opponents in front of you. And in here you get roll caught, miss the timing of the roll somewhere in there, and these invasions end up very fast, especially as the Sunbro is doing really good damage. That's it for this episode, guys. I would like to thank 618 Sonic Supra for sending me his clips. I think their analysis can really help him get better and also help lots of other invaders with similar issues. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Raven out.